This is a Hasselblad V system camera. And these are some of the most beautiful medium format cameras ever made. They take a gorgeous 6x6 medium format negative on 120 film, and these cameras have produced some of the greatest images in our history. But what if you want to shoot a different format on your Hasselblad? Well, you have lots of options. You can get a 645 back, and you can get Polaroid backs, sheet film backs, and all kinds of other cool film backs. But the one film back this system was always missing was a 35mm panoramic back. But now that exists with this. The 135W Mutex. A true 35mm panoramic back for Hasselblad cameras. Now you can tell straight away from looking at this back that it does use a lot of 3D printed components. However, in this case, that's actually not a bad thing in my opinion. All of the major functional parts and the parts that do need to be strong are actually metal. So that's all of the latches that hold the back onto the camera, any places where there's a lot of stress or strain, and a lot of the internal mechanism does seem to be metal as well. It's mostly a 3D printed case. So if we open it up, first of all, to open this back up, you have to take the dark slide out first, because you can see that the little handle here wraps around where this comes out. So take that out. We need to open the latch here on the back, and then you just pull it back down. So taking a look inside, we can see that this spool here is metal, this shaft is. The winding fork thing that catches in the 35mm film is metal. The mounting plate, all metal, mask metal. This plate here, I think it's like a plastic coated metal or something, I'm not sure, but that's where the film gets transported along. Other parts, I believe the internal to this is metal. The latches here that attach the back to the body itself are metal, but it seems that all of the important parts are actually made of metal, and a lot of these are very simple parts that could be cut on a CNC machine, and then it's kind of just got a 3D printed case. And I think this overall approach of using, metal parts on the parts that need it, and then 3D printing to make, the plastic parts, the case, complicate stuff like this, which would be very difficult to get a mold made for. So having that 3D printed makes sense. And to mount on the camera, it just mounts like any other back. So just take off our A12, put this on. There we go, and it fits absolutely perfect on the back of the Hasselblad, and I've had no issues at all. But you can see here the little tabs here that the film back is held on with are actually full metal as well. Another thing you're going to need for this is a mask. This mask actually came with the camera, and it is a piece of acrylic with a set of frame lines. It just drops in. Now I did find this mask kind of annoying to use because it got scratched super easily. It's only made out of acrylic, and it made it very hard to tell when it was exactly in focus. So because of that, I don't actually use this mask anymore. Instead, I 3D printed my own mask. I just found it on Thingiverse and put it through the printer. It took about 5 minutes, and now I have a much nicer mask in my opinion for this, with accurate frame lines that doesn't block the focusing screen as much. And to the people who made this back, I'm sure it will be very easy for you because you're already using 3D printed parts. You could surely make 3D printed masks as well and ship them with the back as a secondary option. So now that we have our mask in and our back mounted, we are pretty much ready to go, but there are a few operational quirks with this back you need to be aware of. And number one is that this does not provide any winding or interlocking with the body, which makes perfect sense because you've got a horizontal transport and normally it's vertical, so it's very hard to turn the movement 90 degrees. It'll make something like this hideously complicated. When I covered the Bronica 135 back for that, it had the same issue where I had this really complicated gear system to make the movement go horizontally. And also this back does not interface with the interlocks of the camera. So if we take, for example, a normal A12 back, I can't push the shutter button even though the camera's cocked because the dark slide is in. So if we just pop that out, now it fires and advances the film at the same time. But with the 135 back on the camera, you can fire it with the dark slide in. So you do need to be quite careful when you're shooting with this back. You need to make sure you have your dark slide out and that you've wound on the film manually. So then the procedure would be take your shot, wind to the next frame until it stops, and then I put the dark slide back in. And that prevents any issues with double exposures. So if it does fire now with the dark slide in, it won't be an issue. So now we know how to work the damn thing. Let's get it loaded. To do that, we're going to take the back off the camera, take out the dark slide, open the back case. So you just put this in, make sure it's fully locked in and you're interfacing with the pin. Hold that down, the film holder, and then you feed the film around this roller here through to the plate. And we're just going to feed it in here. You can see it come through. I'm going to feed it carefully through. And you can see on the take-up side we have a roller with some teeth on it that interface with the sprocket holes. And this is actually used to count the advancements of the film as it's mechanically linked to this top part here, which is our frame stop. Pull that around, and you see we can't pull it any further because we're interfacing up here. So this little latch here is what stops you from winding past the next frame. So to go past it, you just lift this little tab up, and then we can just sort of pull the film past that latch point, and that will give us another frame advancement worth of film to play with. We'll just feed it into our take-up spool. For some reason I've had more trouble with Kodak film in this back. I found all the other films wound pretty well. The Bronica wide back had the same issue as this, so taking up all the tension. And we can see here we're on the next latch point, so we're good to go. It's wrapped over itself. So now we're just going to close the back. I'm going to put this into the lock position so it can't accidentally open. So I'm going to put our dark slide in, pop this out, wind to the next frame, and then I'm just going to do that one more time to be sure. And now our back is ready to go. So, and now it's time to shoot some 35mm pano shots. So for this shot I actually got down real low so the deer would skyline, and then I filled the whole panorama with the hill and the deer just sitting on it. I think it looked really cool. So is this 35mm panoramic back actually worth buying? Well, that comes down to you because it's the buyer who dictates whether they want something and not the seller. But if you are absolutely dead set on buying a panoramic back of some kind, this is by far the best implementation of it I have seen. Yes, it is a fully manual system, so you have to wind and advance things separately to the camera itself, but this makes the back actually technically feasible, and it allows the creator to make it in multiple mounts, which, by the way, you can buy this in the Bronica ETR, Mamiya RB, Hasselblad 500, I think the Bronica SQA, I can't remember if that's on the website or not. I'll put a screenshot up if it is. And you can get it for 2x3 Graflock mount as well. Now, if you buy this back for a larger than 6x6 camera, so the Mamiya RB 6.7 or a 2x3 camera, the film gate can be set to 65mm by 24, which is the full Hasselblad XPAN format. On this Hasselblad 500cm, it's limited to 56mm wide because that's as wide as the film gate can actually go. So overall, I think if you are going to buy a panoramic back for your camera, this probably is the best option at the moment, at least. I know Bronica has those 135W backs, but they are hideously expensive compared to this. I think this is like $235, and I think those panoramic backs sell for like €400, so quite a price difference. Yes, not a first party accessory, but it does work. So overall, if you want one of these backs, I can recommend buying this one. I shot 4 rolls through it and I had absolutely no issues at all. Anyway, that's it. See you next time.